What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my spiritual perspective. That's not how the video opens. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel, and I help people using a spiritual perspective. That's the opening. Today's video is number day 2600 of how long I've been going through a spiritual awakening. Just in case you don't know what a spiritual awakening is, let me just very, very quickly break it down to you. It is essentially the process of uncovering your deepest self. That's it. Very plain and simple, very straightforward. All the angel numbers and ideas of soulmates and twin flames and kundalini and wearing v-necks that go all the way down to my navel. Okay, that's all part of spirituality, I suppose, but it's not really what a spiritual awakening is, right? Spiritual awakening is the uncovering of your deepest self, okay? Now that happened about 7 years ago, which is about 2,600 days, okay? A little bit more than 7 years. I'm rounding it up. Rounding it down, I don't know. Time is difficult. But the point is that if you've gone through 7 years, 6 years, however long, of a spiritual awakening, you do get to a point. You do get to a point where you are disillusioned. This is what 2,600 days does to a human being. 2,600 days of a deep uncovering of self teaches you a few things. One of the things that it teaches you is that you have learned nothing. You don't know anything, which is actually two things, I suppose, but okay, whatever. You also don't learn how to get better at math, so that's there as well. What you also learn is that the things that you want change, and the things that you need become different, right? The things that you thought everything was going to become, it just doesn't. The beginning of your spiritual awakening, guys, very, very fun. Lots of new information, very exciting. You got to think about it like the first time you've ever gone to Disneyland, right? Holy shit, Disneyland is amazing. Really, really cool, especially if you have money. And then you go to Disneyland, 34 times later, and the lines and the heat and everything's overpriced. You don't really have as much fun. Things change, right? The information that you get at the beginning of the spiritual awakening is really awesome. And it changes things, and your mind is opened, and that's very, very good. But the opening of the mind is not the end of the journey. It's the beginning. It's the very, 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 very beginning. And it just keeps going. And another thing that you learn is that there is no end. It does not end. 2,600 days later, you would think that there would be an end. The end is death. That's the end. Once something has changed, it's too late to go back. There's many, many times where you struggle, where you still have habits and patterns that come up, but you just become more aware of them. Now, that awareness, of course, could elicit some deep inner change in which you might never do those things again, or you might lessen them, or you might feel different about them, but ultimately, you might end up doing the same things that you did when you were a teenager, when you're in your early 20s. But the awareness is what changes. And so you have the opportunity. You have more opportunities to change. You have more opportunities to become somebody, to become yourself. And that's what it is. It's the uncovering of yourself. Again, spiritual awakening is just the uncovering of the deepest parts of who you are, and what you discover are things that have always been there, right? 2,600 days later, you're disillusioned. You don't believe the same things that you did at the start. You don't feel the same. You don't have the same sense of naivety. You don't have the same sense of inspiration, right? And even the things that on the spiritual journey that used to make sense and used to believe and used to make you feel happy, peaceful, that they don't necessarily stay the same either. Now, of course, relationships change, jobs change, everything changes. Everything becomes different. Everything becomes weird and messy, and you become sensitive towards things. And all the trajectory that you thought, the way that you thought this journey would go, it doesn't end up like that. Progress is not this linear sort of thing. Progress is this weird back and forth, up and down, topsy-turvy sort of weird way of moving forward, like a river, I suppose. It's rarely in a straight line. So that's the spiritual awakening. 2,600 days later, I'm not happy. I don't believe in the same things. A lot of things don't make sense. It stops really becoming about sort of associating yourself with outside principles and outside communities and outside circles. It's really more about, how deep can I go? How much is left? Where am I? Where am I in relation to everything? I mean, you might have a job, you might have relationships, you might have friendships, family members, things of all kinds of nature. But where are you in relation to those things, right? Um, where is the deepest self? Where the fuck is the real, peaceful, honest, genuine feelings? Where's the empathy? Where is the soul? Right? At the beginning, it's not so much about where is the soul. It's more about, you know, things are changing and it's new and it's exciting, you know. Couple years in, you know, you've kind of gotten going with a lot of stuff, right? For me, I had all these new ideas and YouTube channel, tarot readings and music and writing, and started to do all this stuff. It's just the more that you go, the less that you believe in the things that you did, because you don't really have the same results that you thought. Your expectations change, really fall apart. 2,600 days in, you don't have the same patience for things. You just get older. I mean, you're already getting older anyway. And as you get older, you don't have the same amount of patience. You don't want to do the same things. But you get tired of staying the same more and more and more. The more of the same attitudes and mistakes that I make, just the worse that I feel, the more aware of it you become, the more that I feel something, right? The more that something is that I'm reacting to something, let's say, the more that it bothers me, right? Because the more awareness that I've gained, the more wisdom that I've gained. 2,600 days into a spiritual awakening, you don't feel like things are getting better. You don't feel like everything is wonderful, candy, gumdrop, rainbow clouds of love and and sort of just ecstasy and all these other sort of things. This enlightenment, 2,600 days in, there is no enlightenment. 2,600 days in, spiritual awakening, as you know, has changed. Again, it isn't about angels and twin flames and past lives, right? It's about, who am I? What do I feel? Who am I at the deepest self? What reactions am I really about? Where am I getting these reactions from? How do I genuinely feel peaceful? Because 1,000 days into the spiritual awakening, it's about how much productivity you can do, how many things you can accomplish, how many spiritual goals, how many emotional goals, physical goals, practical goals, how many cool things can you do. Did you go on a retreat to Sedona? Did you take Bufo or Kambo? Did you do ayahuasca one spray and tried mushrooms, did you date this person? Did you go here? Did you travel? And you do all these amazing things. 2,600 days into the spiritual awakening, those things are not the same. It doesn't matter anymore, because all that's really here is your emotions. And they're the same emotions that you've had since you were a child. The situations have changed and the context has changed, but the way that you react to things and the way that you feel deeply, it's still there. Right? It doesn't matter how much stuff you've done in your spiritual awakening. It's not really about the productivity. It's not about how much you've done. I can do 20 things in a day, 20 positive things in a day, and I could feel exactly the same, and I could sabotage it all by 9 o'clock at night. But if I move slowly and focus more on my inner process, I can do only 1 or 2 productive things in a day and feel much, much better. It's not about productivity. It's not about how much you can do. 2,600 days into a spiritual awakening, and the loneliness, the pain, the apathy, it's loud. It's very loud. It's loud enough to force you to do things that you wouldn't normally do, like meditate or be consistent or discipline yourself or try not to eat chocolate every day. I don't know. I love chocolate, and I'm going to keep eating it, but maybe not every day. And things start to change because you don't want to keep being the same. And it's not about having the same haircut or being the same body weight or living in the same place. I mean, those are all things that, yeah, they might bother you or whatever, but it's about feeling the same. Nobody wants to feel the same way. I don't want the same situations to hurt me. I don't want to fall in love with the wrong woman again. I don't want to make the same mistakes again. I don't want to end up doing things that are not working again, And again, everybody knows what they want to do, what they can do, what they should do. The emotions, they get in the way and they just come up 2,600 days into your spiritual awakening. There's a shit ton of emotions. There's so many emotions. There's more emotions than you even think could possibly exist within you. And other people are not going to get it. 2,600 days into the spiritual awakening, most people, you're going to understand, are not on the same wavelength as you. They're just different. They are not less than. You'll learn that pretty quickly, that people are not better or worse than you because of you where you are in a spiritual journey. Um, but you'll see them differently. You'll see that people don't get it. They're not sensitive. They don't feel things the same way. If you're 2,600 days into a spiritual awakening, the chances are you feel things very deeply. You probably accepted that by this point, that you do feel things very differently and deeply. And the way that you relate to them is how you change. Things in life change me. I reflect on them. I think about them. They make me feel something. They make me want to be something. They make me want to change. People affect me. Sitting in the park and feeding birds affects me. Maybe I'm a poetic, nightmare, romantic, overzealous kind of human, but things affect me deeply and importantly. And that's what happens 2,600 days into a spiritual awakening. You're affected. You're sensitive. You're deep. You think deeply about things. You feel things that others are not going to feel. And you stop trying to relate to everybody else. You stop trying to make sense of everyone else's actions, and you start focusing more on your own. 2,600 days into a spiritual awakening, and you realize who you are and who you're not. You don't have everything figured out, but you do understand, possibly. You do possibly understand what is required of you, what is asked of you, right? Because you've 2,600 days into awakening, spiritual awakening, you've seen a lot of things. You've understood a lot of things. You've experienced a lot of things. You've probably been to a lot of places and tried a lot of new things and have a lot of information, new information, and a new way of looking at things, a new perspective, many new perspectives. And yet ultimately what it ends up coming down to is just who you are, right? 2,600 days into a spiritual awakening, all those things that you've accumulated have just led up to this exact moment. And all that you can do is shift, not logically, not practically, shifting for yourself, shifting emotionally. 2,600 days into a spiritual awakening, it's all about shifting. It's all about where you're going with an energy, not about with a thought or even necessarily an emotion, but where are we going energetically? What is being asked of you? Your obligations, right? Your obligations have changed. It used to be to the universe, the angels, God, whatever, other people, family members. No. What is being asked of you at your deepest core? What can you do? What are you shifting? What is there? 2,600 days into a spiritual awakening, you realize that the only thing that is consistently present within you is yourself. And that is possibly also the only thing that you were inconsistent about listening to. 2,600 days into a spiritual awakening is when you start to listen to yourself.